Hello everybody, I'm Cameron Carlisle, and today I'm going to talk to you about role-playing games, particularly tabletop role-playing games or pen and paper role-playing games. But I'm not going to take a conventional approach. I'm not a very conventional person. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about role-playing games, but I'm going to phrase it, and I'm going to turn this whole conversation into a role-playing game itself. And one thing I'm gonna note before I'm gonna put a lot of links down below that you should probably check out. I'm gonna mention them in there, but I don't want to break the fourth wall per se and tell you that the links are in there while I'm doing the video. So check out the links below. And here's my presentation. We start off in a courtroom. You are the jurors of a trial. It's a special case. John Jackson, attorney at law, is defending a point saying that role-playing games are indeed a leisure activity, and persecuting the one who is saying that this is not true is Jack Johnson. And so what we have is a courtroom, and there's not a whole lot of people there. It's probably minimal people, maybe like the courtroom reporter, the judge, you the jury, myself, I'm a key witness in here, John Jackson and Jack Johnson, and then maybe like 5 to 10 people sitting in the audience of the courtroom. Who knows why they're there. So John Jackson gets up for his opening remarks. And here is what he says. I am John Jackson, attorney at law. I am here to defend the case that role-playing games are indeed a great leisure activity, and that everyone should try them. Let me spin you a tale from the start of role-playing games. And then, just like that, everyone in the courtroom is teleported to a dark basement, and you all notice that your flies on the wall in this dark basement. There's shag carpet, a lot of miniatures laying around. There's a guy sitting at the center of this basement on a table. He's drawing stuff out. He's manipulating these miniatures, and he's like making this scene per se. And what you guys notice, what some of you notice, is that the era that you guys have been teleported in must be around the 1970s. And then one of you notices that there's a calendar in there, and that the year is 1974. And then another part of you notice, the astute among you, the people who know role-playing games, recognize Gary Gygax in the center. And he's the one playing with the figurines and like drawing out maps and stuff. And then all of a sudden he stops, and he has this profound thought. He says, I really love these war games, but what if instead of controlling an entire army, we controlled a singular individual? And we came up with this unique backstory for this individual. Each of us, a different individual, a different backstory. And we played a game. And during this game, not only do we fight epic monsters and have these gigantic battles, but what we do is we go on adventures, brave quests, and grand adventures. And then, just like that, a light bulb pops into his head. And as that light bulb pops up, you all start noticing the room begins to spin. And what you notice is you're in a magical trap in a way, and you can't get out of it. The room keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, and you start seeing illusions. And these illusions are images of people playing a similar game to what you saw in the basement. And what they're doing is they're getting together, and it looks like a very social interaction. And they're playing a game called Dungeons and Dragons. and they're having just a great time. There's all sorts of fun going on. But in the distance, you see that there's a darkness growing, and you see these mainstream media and religious fanatics talking about how Dungeons and Dragons is unhealthy or demonic. But luckily, that's fended off very easily, and you begin to see a proliferation of this game into different genres. Not just a fantasy game, not just a dungeon game, but you got sci-fi Star Trek stuff. You have cyberpunk, Blade Runner kind of stuff, and then you have all sorts of things like a post-apocalyptic Mad Max wasteland. It varies way across the board, and that is what you notice. And then the flashback grows, and you recognize the CSU and Mankato, and you see a room, the Heritage Room. Everyone recognizes this, and you see a group of students playing a game called Dungeon World. And in that game, you see such a great social experience going on. You see a lot of laughing, a lot of enjoyment, and then you flash back to the courtroom. And as John Jackson is closing his remarks, you're back in the courtroom, and he says, "Now, if that doesn't convince you that role-playing games are indeed a great leisure activity, then I guess we can go further. But I will sustain my opening remarks for now." And then he goes and sits down, and up stands Jack Johnson. And Jack Johnson is he's a scrawnier guy, and he gets up and he begins talking about how role-playing games aren't a good leisure activity, and this doesn't get that great of a reception per se. So what happens typically in a role-playing game is now Jack Johnson must roll to make such broad accusations and try to persuade the jury. So this is a 20-sided dice, referred to as a D20. And so Jack Johnson's character, which is me, as the NPC and the game master, I will roll for him, and I will roll a 1, which is a critical fail. And so a critical fail means it just goes absolutely wrong, and it even impacts him greater than what he originally had intended. And so he makes just terrible opening remarks, and nobody is swayed by them. And so John Jackson gets back up, and here's his dialogue. "Now, people, before you, I present to you Cameron Carlisle. He is my key witness in this here trial, and I'm going to ask him a few questions. He's a role-playing game enthusiast." And so then Cameron Carlisle takes the stand, and he begins to answer the questions that John Jackson puts in front of him. Jackson asks, "What is your background in role-playing games?" To which Cameron responds, "I don't have a very long history in role-playing games. I've only been playing for a little less than a year. And how I got started in them is I went to the Assorted Mavericks Gaming Club, just looking to game. And I came across the fact that they roleplay on Thursday nights. And my girlfriend convinced me to roleplay, actually, with them on Thursday nights. She being a little more of a role player than I, as far as RPGs go. And so what happened is I started on this game called Dungeon World, and it was quite the experience. It was a really laid back game, because what I thought about role playing games is they're very rule intensive. You gotta do this, that, and the other things. That's the kind of experience you get from stuff like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. But this dungeon world game is completely different. You make your character in 5 minutes, and it's just a little sheet that you check off different things on. And then you get to role playing, and it's super simple. You just act as a character, and that's all this is acting and painting a picture. And then I became a game master the following semester, just because there wasn't enough, and I was really interested in this Cyberpunk 2020 system, and I really wanted to play it. But I mean, I could game master. It's just game mastering is no different than playing the game. All you're doing is painting the scene, and so that's how I really got into it. And then it cuts back to John Jackson. John Jackson was like, all right. What are RPGs? To which Cameron responds, role-playing games, or RPGs, are a fun game. And not even just fun, it's a social experience in which you play a character, which could be completely different from your own personalities, and you're just acting it out, and it's just a really great experience. And there's just nothing like it in the world. There's no other thing like it where you can you act a character and you play a story, other than like theater. But it's a little like better than theater, because you're not performing for people, you're just playing for yourself. And the same in a game per se, because you're not playing to win, you're playing to have fun and continue the story. And then John Jackson asks, what are needed to play these role-playing games? And Cameron responds, not a whole lot. You need a group of friends. You need a system, one of the various role-playing games out there. You need a pen and paper, and you need some dice. That's it. It's a very simple thing. And then John Jackson asks, what RPGs do you suggest? To which Cameron responds, I suggest that everyone pick up Dungeon World. It's a very simple game. And then some silly ones like Honey Heist, where the tagline is, it's HoneyCon 2017 and you're a bear trying to steal the honey prize. And it's a really funny game where you play as a bear with a hat on, and you're fooling all these humans to try to steal stuff, and it's all randomized. Takes less than 5 minutes to create a character. And then John, where do you play these role-playing games? And Cameron responds, you play them anywhere, really. I recommend strongly the Assorted Mavericks Gaming Club, and that's where the best place to game is, because they will work with anybody with any skill level, and they'll really teach you how to roleplay if you really need to. I myself am the vice president of this club. And then John Jackson responds, no further questions. Jack Johnson takes the floor for some cross-examination, and he asks, would you say there's a link between RPGs and Legion? To which Cameron responds, there is definitely a link. You can just look at primarily flow. Once you get into character, once you get into game, once you start feeling the game and start being your character, time slips by. You don't even notice it, because you're a whole different person. You're experiencing a whole different thing, and it's completely flowing. And as long as you're playing something simple, it's not going to be above your experience level, and it's never really below your experience level, because it's not like a stupid thing like you don't know how to do it, or you know way more on how to do it, so it's just lame. Even you see improv actors doing it a lot on the One Shot podcast, and they do a great job at it, and they just experience the system of flow. And then Jack Johnson rather, says, no further questions. And then we go, pan away. And that's the trial. And you are the jury of this trial. So it's up to you to really decide on whether role-playing games are a good leisure activity. And I strongly recommend it. It's the summer now, so wait till fall, but especially join the Assorted Mavericks Gaming Facebook page. and look for events, because I want to do events during the summer. I want to teach people how to role play, and I want to role play myself because it's a really fun experience.